greatest thing we ever did.
Yeah, that's a great shout.
I think we're costing them probably a lot of money.
Mm.
So thank you, Adela, for jumping in. Hope you're having a good week. So Stephen and I have been chatting with candidates over the last week or so, and a lot of the sessions that we've been doing have been like really showing them different things that we do in B2B sales and marketing that help us to stand out when we're trying to engage with prospects. And I think that, as like more senior level sales leaders, we kind of take for granted a lot of the things that we do naturally when we're doing our own job search. And you obviously have been, pretty successful in getting noticed from some pretty big companies, getting some interviews, kind of fingers crossed that you'll land something. But just the fact that you hit the ground running, and have been able to, stand out. We'd just love to jam with you a little bit about like what those first 24 or 48 hours looked like. What are some of the things that you think worked really well? What are some of the things that didn't work so well? And then kind of hopefully frame it for others to be able to learn from it.
Yeah, perfect. So I did put together just one slide, basically just to help frame my thoughts. So what I did is it kind of outlines my approach. I mean, not so much within, I would say, 24 to 72 hours, but basically what I've been doing this past month or so, and how I sort of approach my job search. So hopefully that will be helpful. So I can share my screen.
Yeah.
Give me a second. Actually, we go present now. Screen. But can you guys see my screen? You'll just see yourself for now.
Not right. No.
No, not yet.
How about now?
Nope. You want to send it to me?
Neat.
Do you see it? Is it presenting?
No.
It's not. Oh, that's weird. Choose what you'd like to show. Yeah, so. Sorry, guys. 2 seconds.
Oh, it's okay. I always struggle with the Google screen share. It's like two extra clicks.
I'm glad it's not just me. How about now?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, hold on. Let me see this. Present now. Yes. A Chrome tab, a window, your entire screen. Yes.
I always do, entire screen, and then it makes you click it one more time if it hits share. Like click the screen and then hit share, and then it usually goes.
Okay. Let's see if this is...
There we go.
Yeah. Hallelujah. Okay, 2 seconds then.
Nice.
So I'll just breeze past this, but obviously if you guys have any like specific questions on any one of them, feel free to stop me. So like I mentioned, I've been probably in the career search for about 2 months now. Obviously with COVID, it's been a little bit more difficult than I anticipated. But this is sort of how I've approached it so far. So first and foremost, just, kind of obvious one, but digging into the network. So because I spent the last 10 years in London, and being an SF native, I thought I'd have a pretty good network to tap into. So the first thing I did was, of course, direct referrals. So get in touch with any previous colleagues or acquaintances, friends, neighbors, etc., to figure out where they're working, what they're doing, what they're up to in their careers, and if they can provide any direct referrals. And then what's interesting is out of that spurred what I kind of have coined secondhand referrals. So what I mean by that is if there's, let's say, so I'm within sales. So if there is a person within a similar industry as me doing a similar role, oftentimes, obviously pre-COVID, they would get contacted by recruiters quite a lot, with potential job offers and, new companies that are starting, etc. So they often would have information of those companies hiring. So they would pass that information on to me. So for instance, I was able to find that, Walmart Media Group were starting their own in-house agency and we're looking for talent through this method. And then, of course, the usual recruiters, specifically ones that are active in the Bay Area or within tech, and then communities. So this is the one that was sort of impacted the most, I guess, by COVID. So I was really looking forward to going to a bunch of Eventbrites and meetup groups and just networking with, people from far and wide. So this moved basically online or virtual for now, but at least I was able to attend a couple, and you never know, who might show up there and you can get some inspiration. So I think those are, fairly standard. Perhaps the next two columns could be potentially a bit more interesting. So I was also been doing a lot of research. So because I'm relatively open to my next career opportunity, as long as it's the right fit and something that's interesting and engaging for me, I'm not tied necessarily to any one type of company or any one type of industry. So I did a lot of research to sort of expand my scope. So I was looking into VC and PE firms, and there's hundreds. I think I just listed 3 as an example. And then oftentimes a lot of these VCs, they'll post the different companies that they've invested in, and then they'll also post the jobs that those companies are also looking for. So, for instance, Sequoia Capital is an early stage investor in a lot of the big tech companies. So there's literally hundreds of roles that come up through this method, and I found that to be quite a good one. Second thing is just industry publications. I listed 2 here, just to get the kind of the thought started. But Built and SF and AngelList are really great ones. So they'll often have lists like let's say the top 100 fintech companies now in the Bay Area or whatever it may be, and they just write lots of different articles, and they help. They're very much involved basically within the community, so they are a great resource as well. And then also just, doing some own kind of independent thinking about what industries might be thriving during COVID. So, workplace tech solutions like Zoom or even Asana, those of course are doing very well as a lot of companies move their workforce online or, into virtual arenas. Fintech is great. So Robinhood, Plaid, and a couple of other companies. So I think now because people are, approaching perhaps they need to be a bit more financially savvy, basically. And I think the pandemic probably proved that so. So I have a couple of contacts at Robinhood that were sharing, the actual business has been really good because people are really thinking about, what does their financial portfolio look like? They have savings, etc. And then, of course, delivery. I think DoorDash has been up a lot. Any kind of online grocery stores as well have been delivering. So, just a couple of examples. So really trying to think outside of the box. And then going back to that original point I made about I'm open to the right opportunity. So really just trying to diversify my career a little bit. So of course there's, having spent 7 years at Microsoft, there's sort of the obvious big tech companies, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons, etc. But once you sort of nail down those, let's say top 10, you might think, okay, what else is out there? So there's a lot of late stage ventures, venture-backed companies such as listed on the PE and VC websites. Another thing as well I was thinking was perhaps consultancies. So a lot of the traditional consultancies such as Deloitte or Accenture are now opening up digital arms. And again, being within digital sales, I thought this could be a great kind of pathway into that. And a lot of them are now focusing on digital transformation across all industries, really. So that was another interesting avenue I explored. And then even just within sales. So of course, there's many different types of sales you can do. So shall I stick with advertising or digital sales? Do I want to go more down the enterprise or SaaS model? Do I really want to focus more on alliances or partnerships? Again, that opens up, different pathways. And last but not least, looking at the wider digital marketing ecosystem. So having been with publishers such as Microsoft in that kind of ecosystem, you can look into agencies, and there's of course hundreds. There's opportunities to go brand direct, so become an in-house talent for digital marketing, or perhaps even into ad tech. So I guess what this helps me do is just really, instead of being microscopically narrow in my approach, I can kind of cast a wider net and see what comes back. So that's sort of what I've done. Hopefully that was a whistle-stop tour. You guys still there?
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Okay.
I'm just picking my job off the table real quick. I think what's super amazing about just one single page here and you putting your thoughts on this page is the roughly 25 avenues of exploration here that you can control entirely, or at least a strong majority of the entire process around, right? It's not, you're not at the mercy of a keyword algorithm, right? Reviewing your submitted application or, you know, a hope and a prayer. Like, you very clearly laid out all those different things. And I think the second big takeaway I thought was really smart there was if you identify that digital transformation is going to be a big trend pulled forward, right? Yeah. So you can just broadly ride that wave by going to Deloitte Digital, and they're going to need tons of hands on deck for all the new, clients are going to need to onboard either inbound and outbound. So you don't even need to think that hard about what specific company in what sector or size. Just go to the hub that all these companies will go to for it. I thought that was really brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. And I think digital transformation is something that Microsoft was focused on heavily. And I think what I found is it's not just them, of course. A lot of other companies across every single industry are doing that as well. So yeah, I guess to your point, I was trying to just find and cast as wide of a net as possible to see what opportunities are out there and what's the right fit.
And no, I love that. And you know, we talk a lot about how going into your job search is a lot like kind of taking a step back and like almost like building your initial go-to-market. And it seems like you've sort of segmented your audience pretty well. So after that kind of initial session, did you find challenges when you were trying to talk to each of these different segments? Because obviously it's different going through VC versus, you know, corporate versus maybe at Deloitte. How did you think about that?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that became clear is I would need to upskill in different qualities or skills depending on that avenue that I took. So for instance, you know, at Microsoft, which is a huge cross-functional type of company, you know, even if you're working on one project, you'll be working with hundreds of different people across the globe. So really, the kind of terminologies and methodologies and even the lingo, like the jargon that we would use, is so specific to Microsoft. So when we'll be speaking to a smaller company like Asana, they would be like, well, what is that? And we don't do that, or we don't call it that. And so I think it was almost like, I hate to say it's like we were obviously both speaking English, but at the same time, like the approach that we took to business and how we structure everything is completely different. Yeah. And it's so funny because at Microsoft, we always used to say, you know, you become just like ingrained in this like system that you've been working with or working in. And on the plus side, that's great because it gives you a lot of structure, but then also you need to be flexible and realize that, you know, people are going to approach it 100 different ways as well. So I think that's one key thing that really stood out for me in the search. So before I'm contacting any of these companies or hopefully, you know, speaking to the recruiters, is really actually spending a good day thinking about how I would speak to them and how we can find that common ground, and how I would need to upskill. And I guess with the consultancies, that was also an interesting one because you really need to think about the whole ecosystem. So whereas I was just within digital marketing, you need to think about how digital transformation actually, you know, touches every single aspect in every single department and across all the different teams. So again, like rather than being very specific and siloed, just taking a broader approach to that as well. I think those are probably two key learnings that have stood out for me so far.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's kind of, again, it's like some of the things that we take for granted, but essentially what you did was you recognize that you need to speak their language.
Yeah, right? Definitely. That's exactly a great way to, that's a much shorter way to summarize that.
Much easier said than done, but
yeah.
I love that. Cool. No, I love that. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I think that's like a lot there that we can unpack. I think it's something that, you know, candidates definitely need to think about. Was there anything else that like stood out to you, Adela, as you were going through, like going into the interview? We talked about with Kevin and Ryan a bit, how they prepared their 3-minute, intro, how they kind of approached it almost like a sales deck. You know, was there anything that you think got you beyond that first or second interview really stood out?
I'll be honest with you. I probably over prepare for interviews, which my husband says is probably the wrong thing. I just like to be over prepared for any scenario, so that's why I do it. But I spend a lot of time researching absolutely everything. Like I want to be as clued up as I can before I go into that conversation, and it just builds the confidence, and it allows me to then be able, again, I guess, to connect with them. So before any interview, I create essentially like a learning document. I use OneNote, but you can use anything, Google Docs, whatever it may be. And I basically prepare about the actual company, so their mission, the mottos, the customers, the products, what are they talking about, what's their brand voice, how do they interact with their customers on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on all social media platforms. I look at their financial statements, if they're a public company, where they're investing. Then I look specifically into the team. So what does the team do? What are their customers? What will my responsibilities be? Who are the partners I'd be working with? I also go on LinkedIn and I basically scavenge my entire network trying to find the right people within this company or connections as well. So I was interviewing with Google earlier this week. So one of the things I did was I spoke to the head of go-to-market based out of New York for his input. I spoke to my friend who works in YouTube in London, and just trying to put different perspectives about the company and making sure I go in the right foot forward. I also spend, and this probably is quite common, have STAR examples. I'm sure you guys have come across those. No? So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So for every single potential story that I might tell, so for instance, if someone might ask me, tell me about a time that you've been successful, or that you've encountered an obstacle at work, or whatever it may be, I have 10 stories that I can reel off the top of my head that are basically in that exact format. So situation, task, this is the situation, this is the task at hand, this is what I actioned, this was the result. And it's usually like a 90-second answer that will then hopefully give that interviewer everything they need to know. So I have those ready to go as well. And then I spend a lot of time picking out the perfect questions to ask as well to the person interviewing me. So, have they done the role before? If so, can they tell me about a day in the life of? What's the career progression like at the company? What's the hardest thing about working in this said role or for said company? And then my thing I kind of go to is I always ask, is there something, I might rephrase differently, but essentially, is there something that, do you have any question marks left? So did I either say something or not say something that would make you think I either am or am not the right candidate for this role? And that's actually a really useful tip because they'll often say, yeah, actually, it's been great. I'm getting to know about your experience, but I noticed that I'm not sure if you have enough experience with product or with technical integrations. And then that's a great opportunity for me then to go back and say, oh, well, actually, do you mind if I clarify that for you? And then I can give a better example. So it sort of gives you immediate feedback then and there in terms of what, how it went and if you're going to go to the next round and whatnot. So that's, it sounds pretty intensive, but again, I think that's how I do it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of the only way to go. You're right. You're asking if there's any, because there a lot of times, unfortunately, they're looking for reasons to say no. Mm-hmm. And they end up just figuring out whether it's the right way to go or not. Depending on who you're talking with, you might end up coming across someone that's kind of looking to get someone hired as quickly as possible, and they don't really want to necessarily go the extra level to even dig into some of those objections. So they might not have ever brought it up if you didn't ask. And a lot of times you might even find them almost convincing themselves out of it as they answer that question. It happens a lot with prospects. They'll say, you don't really have experience in this industry, but actually that might not matter as much because blah, 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 right? And you're like, oh, great idea. I think another thing that you said that was really interesting, and we'll kind of jump after this, is how much you prepared and how much you studied how their sales organization worked, but you really started to understand how the rest of the business worked too, right? So you can speak intelligently about where the company's going, a lot of the financial stuff that you were talking about. Sales touches every single part of the business, and a lot of times, especially for the more junior candidates that are coming in, you're not just interviewing for the job that you're going into now, right? Exactly. In a lot of ways, you're interviewing for the next job and the next job after that. So if you can show that vision, especially early on, that is something that people will latch onto.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself. And I think that's definitely been the case with everyone I've spoken to so far is, okay, great, you can do this job today and probably the next year, but where are you going beyond that? You know, are you going to this area, or if we shift gears completely and decide to do that product and decide to do this instead, like, you know, can you change gears like that? So I think that's a very valid point.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, this is great.
Very good. Very good.
Hopefully that was
yeah.
Awesome.
We will like distill it and send out short videos if you'd like to see them. And if you want to send me that slide, if you're comfortable with it, if not, it's all good. But that would be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Well, that's not useful then.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, have a great rest of the week, you guys.
You too. And as always,
thanks so much.
Bye.
let us know how we can help. See ya.
Bye.